Hello everyone and welcome back to More Knowing Wheel, episode 99 of your favourite Formula 1 show. And this week, as you might be able to tell by the doughy eyes and the calmer and deeper, darker tones of both of our voices, we're recording very, very early in the morning this week. Jamie, of course, it was, at the time of recording, it was Valentine's Day yesterday, so Jamie was busy. What were you up to, mate? What have you been up to?
Well, I was on a holiday over the weekend in Southampton with a few friends, and then on the way back Tuesday I stopped in Nottingham to go and watch my football team Barnet get absolutely battered. 4-1.
Did you lose, did you?
Yeah, we did.
Unfairly.
It shouldn't have been 4-1, but there we go.
Should you have lost, though?
Probably, yes.
Fair enough, fair enough. But we are back, like we said, of course. Last week we did our preview show on the all-new Haas, Red Bull and Williams. This time around we're doing it on the Alfa Romeo, the Alfa Tauri and the Aston Martin. Yes, we've got all of the A's this week to run through, of course. And then next week's show we will be dedicating it to McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes and Alpine, which probably is going to be the most interesting one to do, of course, because all four of those teams, probably are going to be fighting towards the top half of the grid. But of course the first car therefore, Jamie, to reveal in the last week was the all-new Alfa Romeo. Of course we already got confirmation of their new sponsor in stake, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it. So far I think still my favourite F1 2023 livery.
I probably would agree with that. I think an Alfa Romeo really haven't missed the mark with their last 3 liveries, I would say now.
Well, really, I'd say since Charles Leclerc came in.
Yeah,
the gold and blue ones I wasn't a fan of, but since then they've been popping off bangers yearly.
Yeah, and so last year's one, of course, was probably my favourite livery on the grid, and the one before with Capure and Giovinazzi was also very, very good. So this is just a next in the run, and it is especially the on-track ones, which we've seen a few very short videos of the car. I think it was in Bahrain with Bottas driving. Or was it Spain? I can't remember.
I think it was Barcelona, yeah.
It just looks really, really good. Probably better in real life than it does in the renders, which were tweeted and publicised and stuff. But yeah, the black and red. The one thing I would say, it looks a little bit too much like a Ferrari. But it does look great. And to be fair to Alfa Romeo, they kind of are like a mini Ferrari, aren't they? So it makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be fair. I mean, in most of Formula 1 history, if your car looks a bit like a Ferrari, it's not normally a bad shout, is it?
No.
To be fair, they're not exactly known for making... Well, I mean, every team has a few ugly Formula 1 cars, but, I mean, of course, we have actually seen the 2023 Ferrari as well now. Obviously, we'll talk about that next week, but that thing doesn't look too bad either. But,
no.
I mean, for me, I think I'm going to rate this car... I guess the only problem we've still got, isn't it, is the fact that pretty much every car on the 2023 grid has got a fair amount of black on it, of course, because they're just trying to go with a naked carbon just to save weight. It does still surprise me that none of the teams seem to be able to get the cars down to the weight without having to do things like this. But it would be nice sort of if next year or the year after we're starting to get cars with more branding again, because it's getting a bit repetitive, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just like they came up with all the teams across the board really came up with, well, what they thought was a good livery at the start of last year, and then gradually have been ripping the paint off it until it's now the good livery plus a load of naked carbon.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But I think for me, Alfa Romeo livery, I'm going to give it a solid 9 out of 10, I reckon. Best livery by far.
I would give it the same as well. 9 out of 10.
18 out of 20 is definitely
very good.
A new high score. But, I mean, obviously looking back towards 2022 then, Jamie, like we said, we do a bit of a preview. And the best way to sort of look towards the future is sometimes just to look back. Alfa Romeo had one of the weirdest 2022 campaigns, I think, didn't they? When we sort of look across the board. Started out the year, obviously Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, they were the only team with a completely new driver lineup going into 2022. Started the year, very, very well. Valtteri Bottas scoring big points on many occasions. Of course, that fantastic, was it P4 at Imola? Early on in the campaign. P5 even, sorry, at Imola, wasn't
fifth,
it?
Yeah.
Early on in the campaign. And, Spain running very, very well as well, all throughout those early races. Because, of course, they were the only team, it was believed, that had their car down to the minimum weight requirement. And then they just went quiet, didn't they, throughout most of the campaign?
The development cycle was really quite poor up until I believe it was Mexico. I mean, one race before
USA,
Mexico. USA. But yeah, between really Canada, they got a double points finish and probably should have been a little bit higher if they weren't for some unfortunate things happening in the race
Weaving
with
by
virtual
Alonso.
safety cars. Yeah, hand weaving. But yeah, from there on, they really didn't ever have the car for points again until the US Grand Prix, and there was a little bit of a run at the end of the season with Bottas, but Joe was only able to pick up like a few points here and there mid-season, where Bottas, I think he went something like 12 races in a row without scoring, after scoring in basically the first 8 or 9. So it's pretty insane really that the car was that good, because it was really at the head of the midfield, or certainly in the top 5 performance-wise at the very start with Bottas driving. And then mid-season it suddenly got passed by basically everyone. They were kind of 7th or 8th most races, or even 9th on some occasions. Like, it was pretty insane, the drop-off, and it was just like the flick of a switch really, because it was almost instant between Canada and then the next races. It was kind of just there and then done.
Yeah, it was certainly a bit strange, wasn't it, from Alfa Romeo to sort of see. It was almost like it was kind of one of those ones where it felt like every other team had suddenly brought a load of upgrades, and of course we had seen other teams bringing more and more upgrades throughout the year, and I do wonder if there was still some sort of internal struggle inside Alfa Romeo, where perhaps they had obviously started the year so strong that they felt that they didn't need to bring any upgrades, and then kind of got to the summer break and thought, guys, we kind of need to do something before this season runs out. That being said, though, they were still able to only just hang on ahead of Aston Martin come season's end, of course, by virtue of that P5 that we mentioned at Imola for Valtteri Bottas, of course, tied with Aston Martin, who really did come on strong in the second half of the campaign. But P5, I mean, for Alfa Romeo, a very, very good result based on previous years as well. But when we look towards 2023, Jamie, do we think it's going to be about trying to maintain? Do we believe they can try and push? Sorry, P6 wasn't it even?
Yeah.
Do we believe they can try and push any higher than that, or is that kind of the ceiling with Formula One's landscape?
I do kind of feel like if they finish 6th again, that'd be really impressive, because actually you have got a team behind Aston Martin behind them, who probably will have a better car this year, because the first half of the season last year they were really not great in terms of performance, and they probably have a better driver lineup as well, which is now, get me in the comments if you want, but I'd think Alonso right now is going to be performing higher than Vettel was last year. So right, all of those things combined, I do expect I expect Aston Martin to jump ahead of Alfa Romeo for 6th, and then I do kind of think the rest of the teams above are a little bit too far. So yeah, I expect a drop of 1 maybe, but if they can finish 6th, then that'd be pretty insane 2 years in a row, because I think it's their best result since 2013, 2012 in
Probably
terms of
2012, yeah. But I mean, of course, the thing as well, what we've got to remember with Alfa Romeo at the moment is there are a lot of other moving parts going on within that organisation. Of course, Audi was successful in buying their first part of, obviously, stake inside the team. So whether we're going to sort of see, Audi, they won't be a massive amount, but, potentially pumping a little bit of money into that program, getting them more prepared, ready for the full Audi takeover in a few years' time. And, of course, the fact we haven't mentioned it so far, but Zhou Guanyu did struggle early on last year. I mean, we've said it countless times over and over. Of course, was a bit unlucky with the fact that obviously he was still adapting to Formula One when Bottas scored pretty much all of the team's points early on in the campaign, but was very, very competitive with Valtteri later on in the season. Do we think, obviously, of course, going into 2023, that really, of course, the question is still what's going to happen with Théo Pourchaire from their F2 roster? Is it kind of one of those situations where Zhou Guanyu has still got a fair shot to prove himself, or is it kind of, unless you do Mega Mate, Teo's getting the seat?
No, I think they prefer him more, but they put a bit more respect to him than that, because basically obviously they've got Théo Pourchaire, who is still very young, still going to his 3rd year of F2, and he's going to be turning 20 this year, I believe.
Late on this year, if I'm not mistaken.
So he's obviously a very hot prospect. He's in the Sauber Junior team, which is very good for them. But I don't think they would drop Zhou unless he did perform quite poorly. So I think he has to take
fanboyism sneaking in.
No, not at all. But you kind of see teams these days, especially when they bring in a rookie, they kind of give them, like, they've got to do something particularly poor or just perform consistently below average for a long time to actually get dropped
and not see much progress. I think is the big one, isn't it?
So I think if Zhou takes even quite a small to medium step forward from last year, they wouldn't drop him.
Really?
No, I don't think so.
Interesting. See, I'm definitely more of the mindset of he's got to be right, probably with Bottas pretty much from the get-go.
No, I don't think that.
I reckon there's going to be more internal pressure inside Sauber to try and get Teo Porcher an F1 seat ready for 2024. Just because, of course, like we said, he is a hot prospect, and I'm sure, if he does finally get that F2 championship, that, he probably should have been very close to last year. And I mean, at 19, that is 18, 19, that's incredibly good going. I think there might be other teams starting to consider knocking on the door quite soon if Sauber Alfa Romeo don't do anything about it. Come on then, Jamie. One bold prediction for Alfa Romeo in 2023.
One bold prediction. I actually can't remember what I said last week for different teams, but out of pure fanboyism, I will go for a Zhou Guanyu top 5 on one occasion.
Okay.
That feels fairly safe because he probably wasn't that far away from that on a few occasions last season.
Okay, interesting. I am going to say it might be less bold than that, and of course helped slightly by more races, but I'm going to say Alfa Romeo are going to score more points than they did last year. I'm not going to say they finish higher, but I reckon they will score more points this year.
That'd be insane. That'd be a very high scoring year for them.
Well, I'm also thinking, there's 2 extra races, a few extra sprints as well. But that's going to be my one. And, I mean, I feel like this one's still fairly easy, but there's every inclination that you might disagree with me. Which driver is going to score more out of Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas?
I think Bottas, still.
Yeah. I think he's still definitely the number one driver within that organisation. And, of course, has looked more and more comfortable in recent years. Let's head over then, Jamie, to New York. Of course, Fashion Week over there. And the all-new Alpha Tauri car. Yeah, we're smashing through both of the Alpha cars this week, of course. Not only have we moved over to New York, but so has Orlan as well, of course. And very, very prominently on the 2023 Alpha Tauri car. Leaving Alfa Romeo, going to Alpha Tauri. An interesting move there. But this Alpha Tauri car, I mean, it is just the digital renders again. And we don't know quite how much of the paint's going to get stripped off come Bahrain. Does look again very cool.
I'm less keen maybe than you are. I prefer the last year's car or the one before, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean it's alright, but I don't particularly like the red Orlen sponsors, which obviously they're completely strangle-held into putting on. But for me, I prefer it without that, or at least less prominently. But yeah, it's a cool looking livery, but it's not my favourite.
No, that's fair enough. So out of 10 then, Jamie, what are we ranking the all-new Alpha Tauri livery? I feel like we might differ on this one.
Yeah, I'll go for a 6. You're going to hate me for that.
Okay. I was going to go with about 7.5 or an 8, to be fair.
Okay,
so
that's good.
I think it is right up there. Not quite Alfa Romeo, but still very, very good. Now, of course, Alpha Tauri, we've always said this. I think a lot of people often forget about this, and perhaps this is slowly changing as well. They're always a weird team when it comes into Formula 1, obviously, when we sort of talk about success and things like that, because they're not really a Formula 1 team like any other, and of course we've banged this drum many, many times before in the past, but Alpha Tauri, if they're winning, it doesn't look good for Red Bull.
No, the aim is not to win, which is very strange. It must be difficult being in the management team of that team, but for them, success looks like bleeding young drivers and getting them into Red Bull, which they actually haven't really done for a very long time successfully. So
no.
Yeah, it's it always is difficult for them because, especially at the start of a rule cycle, they're not really prioritizing performance, which means they often get dropped by everyone. So hopefully that doesn't completely happen and they end up cast off at the back. But like if you compare it straight to 2021 versus 2022, which was the end of a rule cycle versus the start, they dropped 3 places in the constructors, and
biggest drop off of anyone.
Performance was also not great at all.
No, exactly. And I mean, AlphaTauri, of course, they just... I mean, I think we were kind of thinking, this was probably going to be Pierre Gasly's last year with the team. Of course, he absolutely was a star of 2021. But, yeah, 2022, it didn't feel like it clicked really for either driver, did it? They had a couple of decent races. Baku, I think, is still, of course, especially for Yuki, an opportunity gone missing.
Mm-hmm.
But P9 behind Haas there come the end of the year, they were definitely stronger than Haas on quite a few occasions later on in the campaign. But again, a bit like Aston Martin with Alfa Romeo, they were just trying to play catch up and from a bit too far back, a bit too late on in the year. Of course, like we mentioned, they've now lost Pierre Gasly as well. So Yuki Tsunoda and Nick de Vries means that AlphaTauri, their driver's height makes up just 9.5% of the F1 grid, when every team should be at around the 10% mark.
Wow. Yeah, they are very short drivers, aren't they? They could have made the car shorter and taken advantage of that.
Could have done.
No difference.
Could have done.
Yeah, I'm not blown away by this lineup, to be honest. Not to go super down on them. I think they're probably, in terms of experience, 2 of the most inexperienced drivers on the grid. Yuki's been around for a while now, actually.
Yuki's into his 4th year, third year, sorry.
Third year. But if I was to rank the driver pairings, which I'm sure we'll do down the line, this would probably be my lowest.
I think we already have.
We already have done it. Yeah, I forgot about that. I think it was my lowest.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain it was for both of us.
So it'll be interesting to see what they can come up with, but I really don't expect that much. And Yuki doesn't strike me as the sort of driver to lead a team. And obviously De Vries has had the total of 1 race in an F1 car. But he's done a lot of testing, so maybe he will be able to do that.
It's going to be a very, very testing year for AlphaTauri. It's either going to be one that we look back on and go, yeah, we kind of could see this from a mile out, or we look back on it and go, fair play, Yuki did really well. He and Nick de Vries worked nicely together. Nick brought a lot of experience from other teams, and Yuki obviously brought, being around the AlphaTauri program for a few years. But it does feel, for me, honestly, Nick de Vries kind of feels a little bit like when they brought Brendan Hartley in. Obviously he's not quite as old as Brendan Hartley, but it just kind of feels
like far off, to be honest.
No, he's not, is he? But I mean, Brendan Hartley, I think, was in his mid-30s, and obviously Nick de Vries is pushing up towards 30. But it just kind of feels again like we might be in for another year where AlphaTauri are kind of just a team that's there. Rather than a team that's got a young prospect ready for Red Bull, or a team that is really delivering towards the front of the midfield. That being said, though, sometimes second year of rule changes, they have done very well. 2015, a good example of that. They often were hassling Red Bull as well that year, of course, because Red Bull had an absolute dog-do season. I'm not expecting that particularly in 2023. But as we look towards the new year, Jamie, it's a bit difficult to really say what aspirations they should have.
Yeah, it is, because, when you've got the likes of a really exciting young driver like Max Verstappen, or like Daniel Ricciardo, or someone back from a long time ago, Sebastian Vettel, that the aim is really to, give them their
Nurture
shot in F1
talent,
and see what happens. But realistically, I don't think either of us see Tsunoda or De Vries ending up in Red Bull, and certainly if they do, they're not like a Red Bull future champion, like you kind of earmark the others for. Yeah. So it's going to be a bit weird. It's going to be like, oh, there they are, they're still here. And then
AlphaTauri came 12th and 13th this week. That was better than they did last week.
Yeah, and it's difficult to see who the next young prospects are. I guess you still got Hauger, who maybe will kick on. I guess you got Isaac Hadjar, Zane Maloney, maybe could be big. Hadjar especially, I think he's about 17, so potentially if he does well in F2, they'll stick him in for next year. But
I'm shocked you haven't mentioned Liam Lawson.
No, I've given up on that. He's off to Super4 now, isn't he?
Yeah, but Gasly did that.
Well, I think Lawson should have got this seat this year, to be honest. But he may get into Toro Rosso, AlphaTauri eventually, but I don't think he'll again, he's not one of those like future champion type drivers, is he?
No.
Whereas Hajar or whoever might be if they kick on.
No, exactly. But I mean, yeah, 2023. Where do we think they're going to be aiming for, Jamie? I reckon it's probably going to be another year of P9, to be honest.
I don't remember. I said Williams would finish 9th.
I think they will. AlphaTauri last, did you?
I would either put AlphaTauri 9th or someone go back and check what I said for Williams. Yeah, I'll stick with 9th. Maybe that's 2 teams in 9th place now.
I'm going to create a graphic at the end of this for all of our predictions, and it's going to be like 6 teams in 9th or something like that. One poll prediction then, Jamie, for AlphaTauri in 2023.
Ooh. It's difficult to be bold with a team like this. I will say they only get 1 Q3 appearance.
Even though Franz Tost has come out saying that Yuki Tsunoda needs to be making it into Q3 every week.
Yeah, but of course he's saying that.
Fair enough.
He also says he hates Christmas, so I don't really listen to Franz Tost.
I love the fact that the only thing we remember about Franz Tost is he hates Christmas from like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I am going to keep to the theme like I did with Alfa Romeo, but I'm going to say AlphaTauri score less points than they did in 2022.
Fewer points. Sorry.
Fewer points. Okay. And which driver do we think is going to win out then? Yuki or Nick?
Well, this is like, a bit of a shot in the dark, really. I don't expect much from either driver. I will go De Vries.
Okay, and for the sake of being interesting, I'm going to say Yuki.
Nice.
I think it's going to be one of those ones where it's just going to be one big result carries one ahead of the other.
Yeah.
A bit like we said, potentially down in a couple of other organisations. Let's move on then, Jamie, to our third and final team then of this week's discussion. And it's Aston Martin. A lot of hype around this team, a lot of excitement. Of course, Fernando Alonso has come out in the last week, most likely at gunpoint, in saying that Lance Stroll is a potential future F1 champion. Lawrence Stroll clearly has things in his contract, but
Alonso knows where his money comes from.
That the livery does look again quite good before all of the paint gets stripped off.
But again, it is a carbon copy, if you pardon the pun, from last year, really.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what we expect really as F1 fans. I just want to tangent this real quick.
Yeah.
But like, they are brands at the end of the day. This is like the reason manufacturers go into F1 is to boost their image and their brand.
To sell road cars.
Yeah. And part of having a brand is having a consistent appearance. This is why Ferrari has been red for the last 70 years. Like, it is kind of that's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, these are 200-mile-an-hour brand billboards, basically. Yeah.
It's not like difficult. I don't know what we expect. Obviously, when you're a little independent team, you can be a bit quirky and fun and change your livery every few years. But teams like Red Bull, who are serious, like Mercedes...
Jamie, we haven't really got any teams like that anymore.
No, I know. They've all been overtaken. So it's like, these are all very serious organisations. They can't be making the car pink every 2 seconds when they fancy it.
Looks
anymore.
Alpine last year.
Yeah. But yeah, everyone's kind of picked a colour and a design, and then I'm just going to stay with that.
It's all about brand identity.
Yeah.
You want someone to be able to look at your car and go, that is a Ferrari. Or, oh wait, no, that's an Alfa Romeo. That being said, though, Aston Martin did have a good livery last year, and it's another good livery this year.
Yeah, it is, definitely. And the only major difference is they've
it's got a 14 on it rather than a 5.
Yeah, they've toned down the neon, like the lighter green a little bit, haven't they?
Yes, yeah, so slightly it looks like.
But it does look quite nice, and especially under some floodlights, that'll look really good, I think, with the glossy green paint.
Yes, yeah. What are we ranking that livery then, Jamie?
I'll go for a safe 7.
Okay, I was going to go with a 7.5. It is quite weird because I think all 3 liveries this week have been bangers. I know you disagree with the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, I don't like the AlphaTauri very much.
But I do think all 3 of these liveries are looking quite damn fine. But of course, Aston Martin, there is a lot of... I think it's probably one of the most hyped up teams as we get into 2023, isn't it? I know we've discussed it before. But really did sort of kick on strong in the second half of 2022, maintain a lot of momentum. And, we are saying it, they have got a better lineup than they did last year. Current Alonso outperforms last year, Vettel. By how much is yet to be decided, because of course Aston Martin will break down his spirits very quickly. We're all expecting that.
Spirits.
But a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, I'm still expecting this to be an absolute implosion at some point this year.
I'm not sure. Alonso, he generally gives new teams at least 1 year before kicking off.
Does he though? Does he really?
Unless they're absolutely awful like McLaren Honda, but yeah. Yeah, I expect good things from Alonso. And yeah, I do hope for his sake that Aston Martin can give him a car capable of his talent, because he hasn't really had that for the last few seasons now, or certainly the reliability.
Since 2006.
Yeah.
2007, really.
Yeah, call it 2010.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I mean, Aston, if you look at trajectory, I think I said this before in a podcast, but they are probably the biggest, maybe them and Mercedes are two of the biggest upward trajectory teams based on in-season development last year.
But nothing kills trajectory like a Spanish pensioner.
Great. This is just Matt's chance to hate Alonso for the first time this season.
I just can see the articles now, though, Jamie. This is the problem. Of Alonso by the summer break already wants out of his deal. Is he going to try and look somewhere else? Aston Martin are going to get rid because he keeps nicking Lance Stroll's milk cartons at lunch. It's just going to be a bloodbath, and then they're not going to score the results they need. Ocon spoke about it last year, didn't he? I thought it was still quite a telling interview when he was talking about obviously the fact that Alonso did no PR work and things like that. Are we going to see Lance Stroll having to try and sell golf clubs and things like that all the time?
He'd probably be up for that, to be honest.
But he's got no personality either. It's just, I feel like this is going to be make or break for Aston Martin. And most of that will come down to the whim of which side of the bed Fernando Alonso gets out of.
Yeah, he's quite a volatile character, to say the least. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And then, yeah, I don't know what order it's going in, but I expect Alonso to win out, despite going up against a future world champion, in his own words. But yeah.
Well, there's still a big part. Well, this is what I don't get. Like when people are mentioning this, he said that about basically everyone he's been up with. he says it. So then when he beats them, he can go, "Look how great I am."
Yeah,
basically.
It's completely just to boost his own perception.
Ego, basically, isn't it? But I mean, that being said, though, potentially Aston Martin could come into the new year, with a car that is close to Alpine and McLaren. And Alonso just decides he's going to start kicking heads in around the field and, could bring them into a position where they are fighting for best of the rest.
Yeah.
But with one hand tied behind his back because his teammate's Lance Stroll.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I kind of think they will take a step forward towards Alpine and McLaren. I mean, they kind of were there or thereabouts anyway towards the end of last season. But even if they do have a car that's on a par with those two, I don't think they'll finish any higher than 6th, just because if Alonso's getting 70 points, I think Stroll will be on about 20.
It's a very, very good point. I mean, really for them, it just depends on how decent Gasly, how long it takes before Gasly and Ocon are having an argument in French
on top of each other
about
in the gravel
cheese
trap
or something. How quickly Oscar Piastri can adapt to Formula One as well. Because, of course, it could end up being in a situation that we get a lot of great battles between Alonso and Lando this year. At the best of the rest.
That'd be great. I'd sign up for that right now, to be honest.
One bold prediction then, Jamie, for Aston Martin in 2023?
Ooh. Is it bold? I'll go for it. Alonso to finish P2 in a race.
That is very bold. I was actually going to go down quite a different theme here. I'm going to say, although Alonso is going to comfortably outrank Stroll in 2023, I'm going to say Stroll gets the single better result.
That'll be funny.
He's just going to get the most... It's going to be like Felipe Massa in 2017, where he just gets an eggy podium somewhere. That you can tell them for the rest of the campaign eats away at Alonso, because Stroll will come in every lunchtime and just put that trophy down in the canteen.
It goes along with our prediction when we did our bold predictions generally, that I said Alonso will whitewash Stroll in qualifying.
Yes.
Which I still think will happen.
There's a very good chance it'll happen in 2023. Is there anything else to go over, though, Jamie, this week?
I don't believe so. I did a little bit of research, and Brendan Hartley, the point of debuting for Toro Rosso, was 29.
Oh, okay. I thought he was
Which
much
is
older than that.
a year older than Nick de Vries is right now.
Fair
So
enough.
yeah, it does remind me of that.
It is very, very close, isn't it, between the two of them. But I think that's going to wrap us up, though, then, for this week's Knowing Wheel podcast. Of course, we will be back next week, like we said, with episode 100 and our final F1 2023 preview show. Thank you all so much for listening, as always. If you have enjoyed, like I said, check us out. Links will be down in the description below. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff as well. But yeah, we will be back very, very soon with more Knowing Wheel. And yeah, I've introed that horrendously, so we'll see you next week.